War machinery. In 1967, the Pentagon received a report that should have stopped the war for a moment of reckoning. It concerned a 3-day period in April of that year, during an operation near the demilitarized zone. A Marine Corps after-action review documented that over 50% of the M16 rifles engaged in that firefight malfunctioned. Some units reported failure rates as high as 80%. Men died clearing their weapons. Men died picking up the AK-47s of enemy dead, because their own rifles were useless. And yet, the rifle that failed in those moments was mechanically almost identical to the rifle that had performed reliably for Special Forces advisors years earlier. The difference was not in the design, but in a series of decisions made thousands of miles from the jungle, decisions that reveal how institutions can sabotage their own soldiers through bureaucratic inertia and industrial politics. The rifle was originally developed with a level of care that the procurement system systematically stripped away. Eugene Stoner's AR-15 was not thrown together. When Armalite developed it in the late 1950s, the design reflected specific choices about materials, ammunition, and manufacturing tolerances. The aluminum receiver kept weight low. The direct impingement gas system, while unconventional, reduced moving parts and kept the rifle balanced. The 1 in 14-inch twist rate stabilized the light 55-grain bullet, and the original ammunition used an IMR extruded propellant that burned cleanly and left minimal residue. When the Air Force adopted the rifle in the early 1960s, they preserved these specifications. The Air Force M16 came with chrome-plated chambers, used the correct ammunition, and functioned as intended. When the Army began issuing the rifle to Special Forces units and advisors in Vietnam, those weapons also performed well. The reports from the field were positive enough that Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara ordered the M16 adopted as the standard rifle for all services, overriding the Army's preference for the M14. But adoption did not mean faithful reproduction. The Army's Ordnance Corps, which had resisted the M16 from the beginning, now controlled its production specifications. And they made changes. They removed the chrome plating from the chamber to save approximately $4 per rifle. They switched from the clean-burning IMR propellant to a ball powder manufactured by Olin Matheson, a supplier with long-standing ties to the military-industrial establishment. They eliminated the cleaning kits and reduced the training manuals to a single page of instructions. The ball powder decision was arguably the most consequential and the least discussed. The change in propellant deserves specific attention because it illustrates how a seemingly minor technical decision can have lethal consequences. The IMR extruded powder that Stoner's rifle was designed to use left relatively little carbon fouling in the gas tube and chamber. The ball powder supplied by Olin, however, burned at a different pressure curve and left significantly more residue. In the humid, dirty environment of Vietnam, this residue accumulated rapidly. After 50 or 60 rounds, the carbon buildup could become sufficient to prevent the bolt from rotating fully into battery, or to cause the extractor to slip off the rim of the spent casing. When a soldier fired the rifle with a fouled chamber, the round would detonate, the gas would cycle the action, but the extractor would fail to pull the empty casing from the chamber. The bolt would then attempt to strip a fresh round from the magazine, slamming it into the base of the stuck casing. At that point, the rifle was completely non-functional until the soldier could force a cleaning rod down the barrel to drive the casing out. In a firefight at 20 meters, that was not a survivable delay. The Army knew about this problem. Colt, the manufacturer, warned them. Eugene Stoner warned them. But the Ordnance Corps had purchased hundreds of millions of rounds of ball powder ammunition, and changing propellants mid-production would have meant acknowledging that the initial decision was wrong. The rifles continued to ship with ammunition that caused them to fail. The failure to provide cleaning equipment reflected a deeper cultural problem within the Army. Compounding the ammunition issue was the Army's decision to ship M16s to Vietnam without cleaning kits and with almost no training. This was not an oversight. It was the result of a deliberate marketing claim that the M16 was self-cleaning, a phrase coined not by the manufacturer, but by Army public affairs officers eager to distinguish the new rifle from the M14. Soldiers were told that the space-age materials and advanced design meant they no longer needed to spend hours maintaining their weapons. The reality was the opposite. The M16's direct impingement system directed carbon and fouling directly into the bolt carrier group. In the sandy, muddy, wet conditions of Vietnam, that carbon mixed with grit and moisture to form an abrasive paste that could stop the action entirely. The rifle required more cleaning, not less. But the cleaning kits never arrived. The first wave of conventional troops issued M16s had no bore brushes, no chamber swabs, no lubrication. They had rifles that fouled rapidly and no means to maintain them. When the ICORD congressional hearings investigated these failures in 1967, they documented cases of Marines using tree branches to clear jammed chambers. They documented units where the only functional cleaning equipment was whatever individual soldiers had purchased themselves and mailed from home. The institutional failure was complete, the wrong ammunition, the wrong training, and no tools to compensate for either. The human cost of these decisions can be measured in the responses of the soldiers who survived. The most telling evidence from the ICORD hearings came not from generals or engineers, but from the letters soldiers wrote home. One Marine wrote that after a firefight, his unit collected the enemy's AK-47s and used them for the remainder of the operation because they could not trust their own rifles. Another described watching a fellow Marine shot while trying to clear a malfunction, the enemy close enough that he could see their faces. A third wrote simply, "I have seen men die because their rifles jammed. I have seen them picked off while they worked the action. This is not right." The military responded eventually. By 1968, the M16A1 was introduced with chrome-plated chambers, a revised buffer to slow the cyclic rate, and a forward assist that allowed the user to force the bolt closed. Cleaning kits were distributed, training materials were developed. The failure rates dropped. But for 2 years American soldiers fought with a rifle that their own leadership had compromised. The AK-47, by contrast, was designed with different priorities. Mikhail Kalashnikov built his rifle with loose tolerances that allowed it to function even when fouled. It used a long-stroke piston that forced carbon out of the action, rather than into it. It was heavy, crude, and inaccurate by comparison. But it fired every time the trigger was pulled. In the close-quarters jungle fighting where the M16 failed, the AK-47's reliability mattered more than any theoretical advantage in accuracy or range. What the M16's failure reveals is that institutional integrity is a component of combat effectiveness. The M16 eventually became the rifle it was meant to be. The platform has served for over 50 years, through multiple wars and countless improvements, but its introduction in Vietnam stands as a case study in how bureaucracy can undermine technology. The Ordnance Corps did not set out to kill American soldiers. They set out to protect their institutional preferences, their supplier relationships, and their budgets. The result was the same. The soldiers in Vietnam understood this before anyone in Washington acknowledged it. They wrote letters home describing rifles that failed. They scavenged enemy weapons to stay alive. They did what they had to do. And when the investigations finally came, they testified honestly about what they had seen. Their testimony did not bring back the dead, but it forced changes that saved lives in subsequent wars. The M16A1, the M16A2, the M4, all of them benefited from the lessons learned in those first 2 years. The story of the M16's failure is not primarily a story about rifles. It is a story about the gap between the people who make decisions and the people who bear their consequences. That gap exists in every institution, in every era. Understanding how it formed, how it persisted, and how it was finally closed matters. Because the next generation of equipment will face the same pressures, and the next generation of soldiers will depend on someone saying no to the wrong propellant. If you value in-depth historical analysis that goes beyond surface-level summaries, subscribe to War Machiner. And if this examination of the M16 story added to your understanding, share this video with someone who needs to know that the hardest part of war is often not the enemy, but the systems we build for ourselves.